Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really compelling, deeply human story about the search for love, calculated deception, and ultimately just incredible psychological resilience. We're going to trace the journey of a young woman who was targeted by a romance scammer, completely exploited, and then left to rebuild her life from absolute scratch. It's a fascinating and, heartbreaking look into how emotional predators actually operate, but more importantly, how victims can reclaim their power. Okay, let's dive into this. I was just a bank to him. Wow. This is the devastating, shattering realization that really anchors our entire story today. It's the exact moment our narrator, Zoe, realizes that the man she deeply loved was entirely a fabrication. Being treated like a disposable object really highlights the cold transaction at the center of all this psychological manipulation. But to understand how she got to this dark place, we first have to look at how the trap was set.
Section 1. The perfect romance. Setting the trap. Because it started out so innocently. Zoe, a kind-hearted 25-year-old working in a flower shop, met Mark, a handsome guy buying pink lilies for his mother's birthday. Just like that, the foundation of trust was instantly laid.
Now take a look at the incredibly rapid pacing here. Emotional predators do not take their time, right? By week 2, Mark is employing a classic manipulation tactic called love bombing. He's overwhelming her with affection, taking her to fancy restaurants, and painting these grand pictures of a shared future. And then, boom. By week 8, the romantic fantasy abruptly hits a manufactured business emergency. This speed is totally deliberate. It's designed to establish immense trust and create a panicked sense of urgency before the victim's critical thinking can even catch up.
And talk about emotional whiplash. You start off with this initial, intense affection. Good morning, beautiful. It makes Zoe feel like a literal princess. But once the scam shifts into its next phase, the behavior radically changes to cold, dismissive messages like, very busy, talk later. This sudden withdrawal of affection causes severe anxiety. It makes the victim desperate to fix whatever they think they did wrong, which makes them far more susceptible to the predator's requests. They say love is blind, but looking back, the warning signs were absolutely there. Mark was extremely quick to declare intense love. He showed poor character by getting angry at restaurant waiters. He was constantly checking his phone, always kind of distracted and detached. And crucially, he engaged in future faking. He was constantly talking about our future and building a shared company, basically creating a fantasy life that existed entirely in words, but never in reality.
Which brings us to Section 2, the expensive betrayal. Monetizing the illusion. This is where the romantic narrative takes a massive pivot. Mark suddenly claims his business is facing a major crisis because a bank loan for new equipment got delayed. Suddenly, he isn't this confident businessman anymore. He's a vulnerable partner in desperate need of a rescue.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the number itself, $5,000. To put that into perspective, this wasn't just spare change for Zoe. This represented her entire life savings, slowly scraped together over 3 years of working at the flower shop. She had dreams of traveling or maybe buying a car. Instead, with her hands literally shaking, she withdrew every single penny and handed it over to Mark in an envelope, entirely based on the trust he had so carefully engineered. Listen closely to the precise language Mark uses here. My dream will die. He is actively weaponizing Zoe's empathy. By framing this fake banking delay as an existential threat to his life's work and, by extension, the future they were supposed to share, he put Zoe in a position where she feels compelled to offer the money herself. He even plays the noble victim, initially saying he just can't take her money, which forces her to insist. It is psychological manipulation at its absolute darkest.
Section 3. Shattered trust and profound grief. Because right after the money changes hands, the trap snaps shut. Mark vanishes. Disconnected phone numbers and an empty apartment confirm the absolute worst. The fantasy was dead.
In the devastating aftermath of all this, Zoe is just consumed by shame. She feels so foolish for handing a stranger her life savings. But her best friend Lisa successfully reframes the whole narrative. She tells Zoe that her kindness, her desire to help a partner, is a beautiful, positive trait. Mark's exploitation of that trait, that is his moral failure. It's his sin, not hers. And honestly, this distinction is the absolute first step in removing the immense shame that victims of romance scams carry around.
Psychologists actually have a clear definition for what Mark is: an emotional predator. These individuals don't just scam randomly, They actively hunt for kind, giving people. They search for the love button, They figure out exactly what their target desperately wants. In Zoe's case, it was a committed relationship and a shared future, and they push that button repeatedly to extract money. And once they get it, they stop playing the game entirely.
Section 4. Rebuilding slowly. Finding inner strength. It takes a real emotional dark night of the soul, but a profound piece of wisdom from Zoe's boss changes everything. She tells her, don't let Mark win twice. He took the money, sure, but he cannot take her smile.
And this brilliantly illustrates that shift in mindset. Initially, Zoe felt like a discarded, broken toy, just used up, manipulated, and thrown in the trash when she was no longer useful. But her boss offered a far more empowering metaphor. Zoe isn't trash, she is a flower. Yes, sometimes flowers get crushed underfoot, but with a little water, some sun, and time, they possess the inherent biological ability to grow and bloom all over again.
But recovery isn't magic, right? It's built on action. So, Zoe took some highly concrete steps to reclaim her life over the next few months. First, she deleted his photos, erasing all those fake smiles. Second, she started putting just a few dollars a week into a jar, a really beautiful symbolic rebuilding of her stolen savings. Third, she educated herself, reading books about predators to truly understand it wasn't her fault. And finally, she poured all that extra energy into her job and ended up earning a promotion to weekend manager.
Section 5. Facing the monster. A chance encounter. Months later, Zoe is just minding her own business in a local supermarket when she hears a familiar laugh. It's Mark, and he is flashing the exact same charm routine on a new, innocent blonde woman. Now, instead of running away, Zoe remembers her boss's advice. She stands tall, walks right up to them, looks calmly at the new girl, and delivers a powerful warning to protect her money and her heart. Mark completely panics. He grabs the girl's arm, calls Zoe crazy, and literally runs out of the store. And it's in that exact moment that Zoe realizes her monster was actually just a weak, small man in a cheap shirt.
Section 6. Blooming after the storm. Finding safe love. Zoe's grounded, healed life looks so much simpler now. It's finding joy in painting broccoli-looking trees just for a laugh and going on a calm, entirely safe date with a quiet man named David.
Through this whole journey, Zoe completely redefines what romance actually means. Her relationship with Mark was like a burning fire. It was full of adrenaline, rushing timelines, anxiety, and demanding behavior, and it eventually burned her right to the ground. But her date with David represents this amazing new understanding, love as a warm blanket. Healthy love shouldn't feel like a panic attack. It should feel safe, calm, and fundamentally respectful. Drawing from all this painful education, Zoe set up some incredible, actionable rules for the future. And she doesn't advocate for closing your heart forever because, hey, the world needs kind people. Instead, build a fence around your heart and make people open the gate slowly. Trust has to be earned over time. If a man asks for money early on, the answer is a hard no. And above all else, if your gut feeling says something is wrong, it absolutely is.
So I want you to ask yourself these two questions. Seriously, this is the ultimate litmus test for any relationship, and it is something you can apply directly to your own life today. Do you feel safe? Do you feel respected? If the answer to either of those questions is no, you have to be brave enough to walk away. It is for sure better to be alone and discover your true self than to be used by someone else.
You know, the predator in this story thought he was throwing her away like trash, totally not realizing he was actually planting a seed. Zoe grew in the dark and bloomed stronger than ever. By learning to love herself first, she ensured that no one could ever discard her again, simply because she belongs entirely to herself. Remember, you are the hero of your own story. So ask yourself, what boundaries do you need to set today to protect your own bloom? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and we'll see you next time.